Welcome to meeting number 20, the House's Common Committee, Standing Committee on the Government Operations and Estimates. You think I've said that enough? I would know how to pronounce it. Pursuant to Standing Order 1083C, the committee is resuming study of the response to the government to the motion for the production of papers adopted on February 20th about contracts with Stellantis. A couple things. Welcome, Ms. Peruzzo. Am I pronouncing that correctly? We appreciate your patience.
Rappel au règlement, Monsieur le Président.
Sorry, just excuse us 2 seconds.
J'ai que l'anglais.
Sorry. Go ahead.
C'est même pas votre voix, Monsieur le Président.
Sorry.
Juste être sûr que tout fonctionne. Donc, j'imagine que ça fonctionne. Si vous me parlez en anglais, je vais voir si l'interprétation fonctionne.
Yeah, we're also getting feedback. Yeah. It sounds like the English and French are both coming through on the same. Sorry.
Our interpreters are remote today.
Yeah, I'm getting, when I'm speaking, I'm hearing it in my, repeating in my ear. Sorry, just, we're going to hang on 2 seconds.
In the meantime?
Yeah, let's go with this first.
Sure.
English channel testing.
We're back. Sorry for that. Thank you for your patience twice now. I want to express my thanks for you joining us in person. We understand there was lots of IT issues last time. That's relatively common with the Zoom with the committee, so we appreciate that you were able to join us today. I'm sorry you weren't able to join us last week, but I give special thanks for your patience in putting up with our IT issues. Colleagues, everybody has been around the table. Participating has received the unredacted version. The motion was unredacted by email, but industry would only provide unredacted and printed, so that is what you get. This is confidential. It's not to be shared with anyone, any staff, anyone outside those who have received it today. Mr. Gasparo, when you're back in person, you will receive a confidential copy. There may be other members at the table who have not received it and will not receive it in the future. Mr. Seaback, for example, is here today, received it. The spirit was that it would stay with that one person. So the next time, if there is a next time we're discussing it, it would be with that MP and not other MPs. I would ask today for any questions put forward. You do not read or bring up specific items from the contract. So you can ask, obviously, about it, but don't say, on page 13, I noticed that the chair of OGO is to receive Christmas gifts, etc. Please don't receive to specifics. So we will go ahead with a 5-minute opening statement. And again, thank you for joining us today. And sorry for all the IT issues. I know it was frustrating for yourself, but I'm glad you could join us today in person. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Honorable members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. My name is Teresa Peruzzo, and I am the Director of External Affairs for Stellantis Canada. As you say, I regret that I was unable to participate in last week's meeting that I had attended and attempted to do. I was unable to join for reasons beyond my or Stellantis' control. I was, however, online with parliamentary IT throughout the duration of the meeting, but unfortunately they were not able to fix the problem. I know that you were frustrated by my non-attendance. Believe me, I was frustrated as well. I hope that my letter on Monday made clear that Stellantis has no objection to members of the committee viewing unredacted versions of the CIF agreement, which I see that you have now received, with appropriate confidentiality safeguards in place, safeguards that reflect established parliamentary processes which will be familiar to the members of the committee. Stellantis has consistently taken the position that the commercially sensitive information contained in our agreement with the government should remain confidential. After the committee asked the government to provide a copy of the agreement, government proposed redactions, and we agreed to the proposed redactions as appropriate. We understand and respect the important role of the OGO committee. That is why we have agreed that the full agreement should be shared with the members in a confidential setting. We hope that this will allow you to advance your study while also protecting the confidentiality of Stellantis' commercially sensitive information. Thank you.
Thank you again. We'll start our 6-minute round with Mrs. Block, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, Ms. Perusa. It's good to have you join us today. As you are well aware, because you were watching committee last week, department officials told us that it was Stellantis who proposed the redactions and outlined why every one of them was necessary. You have now written a letter and in your opening remarks claimed that Stellantis never requested for the documents to be redacted. After this committee ordered the documents to be produced, who initiated the conversation regarding redactions?
Well, I can't speak for others' testimony. I can speak to the context and the process through which the agreements have been shared. The context is essentially, as I said in my opening remarks, the importance of maintaining confidentiality of commercially sensitive information. And that's the context that overlays, almost like a lens, on all of these agreements. And I believe that that's an objective that the government shares as well. So that's the context that goes over this. When the government, when we were advised that the agreement had been requested, the government provided some redactions, which we reviewed and agreed again, given that those redactions reflected our business information.
So how do you square your testimony today with the testimony that we received from ISED when they appeared? And I'm going to quote the response that we got. However, and I'm quoting, I can say that in our discussions with Stellantis, they outlined to us for every redaction of why they felt to be necessary to be protected commercially, and we were comfortable with the redactions that they proposed. So that's a little bit different than what you're telling us here today.
Thank you. And again, I can't speak to someone else's testimony to this committee. I can outline the context and the process through which we were engaged, and that is how the process went through in terms of redactions that were proposed and we reviewed and consented. So essentially, it was a joint effort in terms of ensuring that our sensitive information is maintained confidential and redacted.
So I'm just going to go back then to the paragraph in the letter that you sent, where you didn't say that this was a joint effort. You said, to be clear, Stellantis did not propose or suggest any of the redactions applied to the version of the CIF agreement that the committee received from ISED. Does that sound like it was a joint process and that there was a going back and forth of what would be redacted and what wouldn't be redacted?
Again, in terms of the context of the request and the process, the government provided us with a copy of a redacted agreement. We reviewed those redactions and agreed that they protected our information appropriately.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Another question. Did ISED ever suggest sharing the fully unredacted contract with the committee?
It goes back to the lens that is always put both with ourselves and with ISED, that shared objective to ensure the confidentiality of our business information.
So they never at any point said, you know, these are parliamentarians. They have a right to see these contracts unredacted. Can we present them to the committee? Would you be comfortable with us presenting them to the committee unredacted?
Our objective, and as Stellantis has continuously maintained, any review of an agreement must be done in a confidential setting, and the protection of the information that's in there is critical.
So just trying to get an answer to the question that I've asked. Did they ever suggest that parliamentarians should receive these contracts unredacted under those circumstances that you've just outlined?
We respect OGO and your privilege in terms of reviewing the agreements, and that is why we did propose, and I see that you've now received the unredacted copies.
So I guess my next question is, so do you agree with their testimony?
I can only speak to my testimony and in terms of the process that I was engaged in.
Okay, well then in response to the question I asked about, I said ever sharing, suggesting that you share the fully unredacted contracts with parliamentarians. I'm going to assume that that is a no. Department officials told us they had back and forth conversations with Stellantis about the redactions. Is that correct?
They provided us the copy of the redactions. We responded that we found them to be appropriate, and then we had a further conversation with respect to those redactions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Mr. Gasparo, but I apologize before we do. As we've had recently, our legal counsel, Mr. Berdar and Ms. Gauthier is with us today. We'll keep it informal. If you have questions for them specifically, feel free to address directly to them. You don't have to go through the chair or anything, so you make use of them if you see fit. Mr. Gasparo, please, for 6 minutes. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Perruzza, for being here. My questions are not directed at you, but through you to your company, and it's around values. And I just want to have a bit of a preamble. So during the global financial crisis, the government of Canada, from a present value perspective, lent then Chrysler over $6 billion. The taxpayer lost over $1.8 billion when the equity value of Chrysler was zero. 11,000 jobs were lost. Plants were shut down. Fast forward to today, the government of Canada lent now Stellantis, from what we have seen, $222 million. And just yesterday, your CEO was in Washington with the president, announcing that they are investing $13 billion in the United States, practically blowing Canadian taxpayers' dollars. So my question is, does Stellantis have a values problem? That they say one thing at one time to get whatever capital they need, and then change their messaging when the environment is convenient for them?
Thank you for the question. Stellantis has been in Canada for over 100 years now, and we remain committed to Canada. With respect to investments in Canada, over the last few years, we have invested billions in Canada. We are increasing production at our Windsor Assembly Plant. We are adding a third shift and 1,500 jobs at the Windsor Assembly Plant. Our Research and Development Center in Windsor has also enhanced their capabilities and added over 600 professional jobs at that location. and we have other investments through other locations as well. So with respect to our commitment in Canada, I think it's fairly clear, given the billions that have been invested over the last number of years and the advancements that we've made.
Well, that sounds good, and we appreciate the foreign direct investment that has been placed in our country. However, I'm going to come back to it again. Your CEO was yesterday at the White House celebrating the rollback of, for example, fuel economy legislation. When I check your corporate filings, corporate sustainability for your products is a top priority. How do you rectify that? And again, I'm coming back to this being a question of values.
Thank you. I can't speak to American policies or American politics, but what I can speak to is our commitment in Canada in terms of the investments, as I just outlined, the advancements that we're making, the employment that we're increasing in Canada as evidence of our commitment to Canada.
When was the decision to relocate Jeep Compass production? Was it made before or after Stellantis accepted government incentives?
This agreement, if you're talking about the CIF agreement, it goes back, I believe, to 2022. And through that time, that included our investments at Windsor, at ARDC, and at Brampton. I know, and you may know, that at the end of October, Jeff Hines had presented at Indu with respect to operational and strategic decisions at that time. So in terms of the decision for Brampton, that was rolled into a plan, a vehicle allocation planning across North America, which continues.
Chair, how much time do I have?
45 seconds.
You mentioned the third shift being added at the Windsor assembly plant, which will create 1,500 new jobs. However, 3,000 jobs are being lost in Brampton. That still leaves a net loss of 1,500 jobs. How does Stellantis justify this overall reduction?
What I would say is that Brampton is on an operational pause. It has not closed, and those employees remain employees of Stellantis.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Gaspar. We'll go to Madame Gaudreau, please, for 6.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Well, what a saga. It's a lot of zeros for the people who are listening and watching us. Because people trust us, and we trusted a company that was a prosperous company that had a great monopoly, and it got helped to the tune of 7 zeros, and unlike other businesses, like forestry, for instance, that got peanuts. But today we're saying, how come it took so long? There was technology. Well, we don't really know what happened between what should be redacted. I mean, I've got it under my eyes. This could have been settled right away. We could practically really look at what was the goal and not giving this information over privately. And we'll be told, oh, it's because of competitiveness. Oh, well, that's one thing for sure. But the most important aspect is to understand how it is that Stellantis, a great big multinational company, can completely
de l'honneur
on its own make decisions against honoring its own contract. Because it's, as we know, it's directly related to the loss of jobs and also non-reimbursable loans of an absolutely huge amount for anybody looking. How can Stellantis possibly explain what is going on right now?
Yeah. We certainly appreciate the support of government for the industry. We certainly appreciate the collaboration with government at all levels of all governments. With respect to the agreements, we are honoring our agreements. We've invested in Windsor, we've invested at the ARDC, and we will continue to work with government to find a suitable solution for Brampton as well.
Alors, si j'ai bien compris,
So, if I understand correctly, Mr. Chairman, so if in this agreement, for instance, certain modalities were not to be respected, so you will rectify things, right? Because if you don't honor your agreement and you say, then you're going to fix this, right? Is that what you're saying in front of the committee?
And that is, we are actively planning and working and collaborating with government to find a solution for Brampton. As I said, we will honor our agreement.
et c'est quoi votre processus de communication?
And what kind of communication process?
Avez-vous
Okay, I'll start again. Have you established a step-by-step communication process to keep, on one hand, the government informed of what you're doing, but the parliamentarians of this particular committee as well?
At this point, sorry, excuse me, we are having conversations with government, and at this point, information that's been shared is confidential. So we will continue to have those conversations. Again, we have the joint, I think all of us have a joint desire to find a solution for Brampton, and that's what we'll continue to work towards.
Et comme il me reste encore un petit peu.
So I still have a little bit of time left. I have another question. No, yes? Who contacted? I stopped my chronometer because it's hard to concentrate. And I have my 6 minutes. And at the same time, there was the preamble. And then there's a bit of a delay with interpretation. So I thank you for your understanding. I'll start my chronometer again. So one last question. Everything's fine? Please do not open the other microphones when I'm speaking. So who was it who contacted you from the department? And what were you told when you were told about the motion on the production of the documents?
I can't recall, I can't recall exactly who, but it would have been someone from ISED, from the SIF unit. Is it not working?
Non, c'est que là, ça marche. Tout s'ouvre, tout se ferme, donc j'ai absolument rien compris.
Yes, I didn't understand a word. Do you mind saying it again? Do you mind repeating?
Yeah, okay. All to say, I don't have the email, I don't know exactly, but it would have been through the Department of ISED in the SIF unit.
J'apprécierais que vous puissiez.
I truly appreciate it.
Faut couper son micro quand je parle.
You've got to cut half mic, otherwise we can't hear.
Keeps.
Yes, who's doing this?
Yeah. Just, we'll allow a bit more time if you wish to continue, Madame.
Pour terminer.
Okay, I just want to finish off here. No,
It's turning on by itself. And it
Sorry,
says you are currently
we've suspended your time.
speaking.
We'll give you one more minute, but IT, I'm watching her. It is turning on and off by itself. I know. Maybe turn it off and then we'll try one more time. We'll go ahead for a minute, Madame.
It's me, I know.
I'm going to suspend for 2 seconds here. I'm watching her.
Tout simplement,
So quite simply, I would like us to have access to the emails of the people who contact or the persons who contacted you at the ministry.
I would have to go back and take a look. Right, yeah, thank you.
Would you provide that information to the committee then?
I will, yes.
Wonderful. We'll now go to Mr. Seaback for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Do you consider the entire CIF agreement that the committee's been given access to commercially sensitive and therefore must be kept confidential? The entire agreement, yes.
Well, for our perspective, any element that has either our investment plans or product plans or other information that's business sensitive, that must be maintained confidential.
Okay, so the entire contract isn't confidential.
I wouldn't say the entire contract.
Okay, because earlier in your testimony, you said that the government, Industry Canada, made some redactions that to protect commercially sensitive information, and you agreed that those redactions protected Stellantis's commercially sensitive information. Is that a fair statement?
I would say that they were appropriate.
Okay, so by default, that would mean that the rest of the contract is not commercially sensitive, and therefore, why should that not be available for us to question the government on the bona fides of this contract?
Oh, sorry. My understanding is that's the study that you're currently undertaking with respect to the agreement.
Yeah, but
no,
but you,
I'm sorry.
But by your own letter from Stellantis, you've said that you're giving us access to this document, and we can't discuss it. It's to be reviewed in camera, and that's the conditions, right? Like I can't go to a section right now and refer to it, despite the fact that you just said most of it isn't commercially sensitive. So it seems to me that the contract that was given to us for the last meeting that had commercially sensitive redactions that you've now agreed are protect the commercially sensitive aspects of your business. Those contracts should be available for members of parliament to use to hold the government to account because they don't protect any confidential information, any commercially sensitive information.
The information that was redacted was the commercially sensitive information as indicated and as appropriate with respect to the rest of the agreement.
But by default, the rest isn't commercially sensitive.
Not in the way of any sharing of any of our of Stellantis information.
Okay, thank you. That to me is very helpful. You do know that the other CIF agreement that Stellantis entered into and the special contribution agreement that Stellantis entered into, that was produced through access to information request, and it's actually hosted on the CBC website, so it's publicly available with commercially sensitive redactions. Is there any difference between that, which is publicly available, and this?
I can't speak to the SCA and the SIF agreement. The special contribution agreement is with Nexstar, which is a separate entity, which is not Stellantis, for one. And with respect to what was shared on CBC, again, I wasn't engaged at all in that process, so I'm not sure if that was through an ATIP, which sometimes, redacts more than what is shared with Parliament. I can't
Sure.
comment.
It could
further than
redact.
that.
It could redact more, but it's now in the public sphere, right? It's on the CBC website to download. I've downloaded it. I've read it with redactions. So it seems to me that we have a version of this contract that was redacted to protect commercially sensitive information. Then the rest of the contract should be available for members of Parliament to use to hold the government to account. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I would suggest that would be a question for Industry Canada.
Or would it be a question for this committee?
Would be a question for this committee through Industry Canada.
Okay, thanks very much. The industry minister just in question period and in House Commons has said you're in breach of contract and they're going to sue you. Do you consider Stellantis to be in a breach of this contract?
I have not heard that, and no, we do not agree that we are in breach of contract.
Right. And she says she's going to sue you, but they haven't sued you yet, have they?
Again, I haven't seen any of her comments from today, so I can't comment on
But you're
that.
not aware that the government has actually sued Stellantis?
I've been here, and I haven't seen anything.
So if it hasn't happened in the last 2 minutes, it hasn't happened.
Point of order, Chair.
Thanks. Sorry, I was just saying thank you, Mr. Seaback. We'll go to Ms. Suds after the point of order. Go ahead, please.
I simply want to verify, Mr. Seaback, whether he has a copy of the contract or not.
That's not a point of order, but we'll now go to Ms. Suds, please, for 5 minutes.
Have a copy or not?
That's not a point of order, but please, Ms. Suds, go ahead.
It's a relevant question. Yeah.
It's not a point of order, but he does have a copy. I explained it at the very beginning of the meeting.
Oh, I must have missed that.
That's okay. Yes, he does.
Sorry, on that, Chair, at the beginning of the meeting, you had said that only permanent members of this
No, I
committee
did not say that. No. Sorry, we're just going to, we'll get to you, Ms. Suds, in a moment. What I explained was, as per the motion, there would be designated people to have a copy. If someone had a copy today, they will continue to have that copy. Someone who doesn't have a copy today, for example, Ms. Jansen, will never have a copy. So should we ever come back to this study, whoever has a copy today will continue with that, which was the motion. Yes, it is. Yeah. We're going to continue with, I've explained it, we're going to continue with Ms. Suds for 5 minutes.
Am I on? Yes. Thank you, Chair. I can't see it either. Okay, thank you for being here with us today. Obviously, lots of questions to dig into. I'd first like to ask if you were when you were contacted first about the proposed redactions to contracts by the department, did you agree to apply the same redactions to those contracts that were done when provided to the House of Commons Standing Committee of Environment last year?
I can't recall the I can't recall the redactions that were provided to the Environment Committee, but I would suggest that if, again, that same lens is used whenever a request is made for these agreements with respect to information, that similar lens would be applied each time there is a request for the agreements.
Okay, thank you for that. So in the documents from last year that went to the Environment Committee, Stellantis did propose redactions.
I don't recall. I really don't recall.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, perhaps that's something we could ask that you follow up to the committee with afterwards, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on then, given everything we've heard, there's hundreds of millions of dollars in public support, a plant closure, jobs lost, and now a dispute over contractual obligations. Why should Canadians and this committee trust Stellantis's vision of events over the written commitments that Stellantis has signed with the Government of Canada?
As indicated in my previous answer with respect to this agreement covers our Windsor Assembly Plant, which has introduced new products, is introducing a third shift. Our Research and Development Center in Windsor, which has added over 600 positions, has enhanced the capabilities of research at Windsor, and is committed to a solution for Brampton, working collaboratively with government, and that is our intent.
Okay, thank you for that. So our understanding, of course, around the table here is that the funding in the SIFT agreement is tied to production levels at the plant. And given production's ending at Brampton, does Stellantis believe that it is still entitled to keep the public funding that it has already received?
Mr. Chair, that may be a question that goes into a bit of detail in the agreement with respect to claims and the processing of the grant. And I only say that because you indicate that it's tied to production credits.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sure we'll have a chance to dig into the contract in time.
Time if you want to pursue that, because I haven't read specifically the item you're referring to.
Like, it's okay. Thank you for that. I'll continue. I have other questions, certainly. Can you explain how closing the Brampton plant fits with the commitments that Stellantis has made when it accepted the federal funding?
Let me be clear. Brampton has not closed. Brampton is on an operational pause, and we continue to look for solutions for that facility. Brampton has not closed.
Perception, perhaps, but thank you. You said earlier in one of your responses to one of my colleagues that Stellantis will honor their obligations in the agreement. We're not seeing evidence of that, and in fact, that's frankly why we're here today. How do you propose that Stellantis is going to do that?
Again, this agreement covers a number of facilities, including our Windsor Assembly Plant, ARDC, and Brampton. We are honoring our agreement. Billions have been invested in Canada over the last few years by Stellantis at our facilities. We are introducing a third shift, increasing production at Windsor, expanding capabilities at ARDC, and are committed to find a solution for Brampton.
Time? Okay, thank you for that.
Madame Gaudreau, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to think in a strategic manner, business strategy. And would really like to understand the reason, why is it that when things are not going as well, okay, very often you're going to do, temporary closing or permanent closing. So for example, closing Windsor. But no, you're just moving it to the States. What's the reason?
We're not, I'm sorry, I'm not quite understanding. It's not moving to, I'm sorry, you mentioned Windsor and moving to the U.S. Windsor is continuing to produce again, and we're increasing production and adding a third shift at Windsor and increasing employment there by 1,500 employees. So that remains the same.
But in fact, it's Brampton. There was money for Brampton. So I'm wondering about the sustainability of the Brampton site.
As I indicated,
viability.
Just most recent response, Brampton is on an operational pause, and we will continue to advance plans and collaborate with government to find a solution. Again, that's all our objectives. Everyone has the same objective.
Mais qu'en est-il sur
But what about the agreements with the US? Where are you in the strategy?
As I indicated, I can't speak to American policies if that's what your question was.
est-ce possible de décrire les enjeux actuels? Parce que
Is it possible to discuss the issues? I mean, we wouldn't be here today talking about jobs, talking about dollars that were given by the government. We wouldn't be here. So, like, give us the overall picture.
And I appreciate the role of OGO and the study that you're undertaking with respect to these to this particular agreement with Stellantis. And as I've indicated, the agreement covers all our facilities. And we have been investing in Canada, will continue to invest in Canada, and continue to be committed to Canada.
Donc, moi, ce que j'ai compris dans l'interprétation,
So, what I understood in the interpretation is that we invested in Canada. But my last question is, are you going to continue investing in Canada?
By virtue of, if you, as I've indicated, increase production at Windsor, an additional 1,500 jobs at Windsor, expanding the capability of our research and development center in Windsor, and working in partnership with governments and other stakeholders for Brampton.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to, there was a headline from CBC News back on November 3rd. Canada will start dispute resolution process over Stellantis jobs lost to the U.S. The Minister Jolie was quoted in that article. Today, before the close of business, the government will take the next step under the contracts to recover Canadian taxpayers' money. This means that we will start the 30-day period of the formal dispute resolution process in order to bring back production at the Brampton facility. This is the start of the dispute resolution process, end quote. So November 4th to December 3rd is 30 calendar days. Have you guys entered into a dispute resolution process with the federal government?
As Minister Jolie indicated, that she was considering the dispute resolution process. We have been in conversation with the minister, with the department, with respect to moving forward on a plan for Brampton.
Okay, and you said earlier that it's your view that you are not in breach of the contract. So, I mean, if the minister's saying you are, you're saying that you're not. I mean, how do we square that?
Again, I didn't see or hear her comments from today. I'll have to go back and take a look exactly at what she said. But to your point, no, we do not believe that we are in breach of the contract. We are honoring our commitments.
Okay, and just for clarity, she said it yesterday in question period, and she said it again today. So she has said it multiple times publicly on the record. One thing that I found fascinating last week at committee, we had the deputy minister come in, insinuate that the minister hadn't read the contract. He said everybody at the table, though, had read the contract, but then later he said he didn't read the contract. So I'm curious on your end, how many people have read the fully unredacted contract on the Stellantis end? Even if it's just a rough ballpark number, you don't have to give me the exact, but is it more than like 1 or 2 people, or how many people would review the contract?
Within
your organization?
Within our company? How many people?
Yeah, roughly how many people would view it?
I'm going to say, I'm trying to do a count. It would be myself, someone in legal, someone in finance. I'm going to say 5 or 6 have reviewed the entire agreement internally, like the entire agreement. There are sections But with respect to who has knowledge of the full agreement, yeah, not that many have read through the entire agreement.
Okay, and then how many people would have access to even just partial elements of the contract?
Would be, internally at Stellantis in
Correct.
terms of the agreement. Again, I don't have that number with respect to internally, because certainly internally, in terms of claims or in terms of legal review, there would be those departments that would focus on their sections of the agreement.
Okay, so fair to say a couple dozen people, probably at least, maybe more, would have access to at least certain portions of this contract internally?
Potentially.
Okay, interesting. As far as the did the government demand any job guarantees from Stellantis as part of the agreement?
You have the agreement, and there are various commitments that are spelled out in the agreement.
But not like a firm guarantee? Like, it was just roughly, this should create roughly 20, like, pick a number. I'm just going to use a random number. This contract's supposed to create X amount of thousands of jobs. Is that a commitment to the contract, or is it just kind of loose?
No, there are commitments in the agreement.
Is this a standard contract, or is this kind of a unique contract?
I couldn't say. I believe CIF agreements are fairly standard, but that would be a question for Industry Canada.
Thanks. We'll finish up with Ms. Rochford, please, for 5.
Oui, thank you very much. Thank you. A pleasure to meet you. And so I was just wondering, how many dollars in total have been disbursed in support of the Brampton plant?
Apologies, I don't have that. I don't have that number.
All right. You spoke of an operational pause, and can you define what an operational pause is?
An operational pause indicate we continue to review the operations at that plant in terms of what the plan is for production moving forward.
How long? Oops, sorry. How long can an operational pause last?
What do you mean?
Is it typically is an operational pause a month, 2 months?
That varies by facility and by the work that's done within the facility.
So broad strokes, if you're talking about potential plans that are being considered as you are in this operational pause, can you provide just maybe an example of what could be being considered?
That would be part of our production or planning, and I would suggest that that would be sensitive information.
One of my questions was to ask with whom you're discussing these plans, and I understand that it's Minister Joly and the ministerial staff. I just want to note that in the Standing Committee on Internal Trade, Minister Joly did speak out and say that she was intending to pursue the matter as part of the dispute resolution process. So that was clearly mentioned. So within your company, who decides on these, and where are these decisions made in terms of next steps? Are they a Canadian decision? Are they a European decision? Where are they made, the decisions?
I think with respect to our North American planning, it is a joint decision between the Canadian President and our CEO in terms of developing a plan that is appropriate and sustainable for Brampton.
When is it decided then that if plans are moving forward, that you are in breach of the contract and are dollars returned at that point?
We continue to honor our commitments with the agreement, and we, again, are all working towards the shared objective of continued production at Brampton.
Have you ever returned funds when a project hasn't gone forward? Has there been an instance in your company's history?
We always honor our
You
agreements.
always honor your. Coming back to the Windsor plan, just I think you had noted that you were hiring 1,500, and at this point you've hired 600 employees. Is that correct?
No. The 1,500 is for the third shift at
Yes,
Windsor.
correct.
The 600 is for a separate facility. We have a research and development center in Windsor called the Automotive Research and Development Center, or ARDC, and they have, separate and apart from the 1,500, hired over 600 professionals for the Research and Development Center.
So these are new hires of recent?
Correct.
Yes. And then how are you progressing with the hires for the third shift in Windsor at this point?
Hiring, I believe the process started November, can't remember, but the process has begun, and the anticipated start of that third shift would be early 2026.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all my questions for now.
You have a minute?
I will leave it to my colleague.
Yeah.
I'll ask a question if that's okay.
Oh, yeah. 1 minute.
Thank you. And I appreciate, Ms. Perusa, you being here, and I hope that you can anticipate and appreciate why this is such a big deal, where communities are losing thousands of jobs based on implications of your business, whether to do business or not, and your business decisions impact real lives within our communities. So I will ask you, and I'm sorry if this is a bit broad, but when you have disagreements between Government of Canada and you as a company, ultimately, how do you make those decisions? Is it based on the dollar value? Is it based on future prospects? Is it based on Canadian values? What makes you make the decisions where communities like Brampton losing thousands of jobs?
Thank you for your question, and certainly understand the concern that you have and your constituents as well, and across the province as well. As I indicated, we remain committed to Canada, and we are actively working to find a plan for that facility.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Perusa, thank you for joining us today. Again, thank you for putting up with our IT issues. I'm not going to blame you. say that you're the jinx. But thanks. We'll excuse you now. Yeah, I'll get you in 2 seconds. I'll hear from you in a moment. We will excuse you, Ms. Perusa. Again, thank you very much. We will suspend in a moment to bring in our new witnesses. Mrs. Block?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just a little concerned with the discrepancies between the testimony that we heard from the Deputy Minister and now Ms. Perusa in regards to who initiated the redactions. And I'm wondering if this isn't a question of privilege and whether or not we should be looking to have you report that.
Colleagues, I'm going to address this to everyone. It is in the Green Book as it appears. It is, but I'm going to suggest perhaps Minister Lightbound is not available next Tuesday, so we do have some space. I'm wondering if we can agree to maybe have Indu come back and give their side, I don't want to say the story, but address the comments made today and what they said previously, and then we can review it then rather than say it is an issue now. Yep.
I appreciate the concerns, and quite frankly, I have similar concerns. What I would ask is a little bit of leeway until the end of the meeting today for me to understand what's going on, and I'd be more than happy to work with colleagues to see if we can find a solution without breaking the back of the other work of the committee.
Yeah, that's fine. Perhaps we can discuss at the end. From reading the big Green Book, it is very clearly, if we're to look at it purely from what was said last week and what the letter was we received, very clearly under I won't go into it, that it does appear that way, but I think to be fair, and we've encountered this before in the past, we've offered an opportunity for them to come address the issue, and I hope that's acceptable to you, Ms. Block, but I think it is better that we do it like that rather than a simple he said, she said, but give them an opportunity to respond.
Section you're looking at in the book?
Yes. Deliberately attempting to mislead the House or committee by way of statement, evidence, or petition. Chapter 3, page 82.
Chapter 3, page 82. Thank you very much.
So, third edition. So, I know we just got the fourth edition a couple days ago. So that, yes. So if that's acceptable, I won't rule on it now. I'll ask that perhaps we chat about it a bit further and seek another option rather than tie things up with the privilege issue at this moment. Acceptable? Again, we will send you on your way. I hope your IT is better over Christmas. Colleagues, we'll suspend for a few moments to bring in our new witnesses. back. I appreciate everyone's patience. Welcome officials from PSPC and Shared Services. I understand you'll each be making a 5-minute opening statement. Colleagues, just very briefly, and I'm guilty of it as well, IT is asking us not to touch the mic button, that they will control it for us as we speak. Who is speaking first from PSPC? Great. Mr. Hammond, the floor is yours for 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. With me today are Dominic Laporte, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister of Procurement, Natalie Bertrand, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Receiver General and Pension.
Apologize. Your mic's on, Mr. Seaback. Please.
Mark Quinlan, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Real Property Services, and Lorenzo Urachi, Assistant Deputy Minister for Policy Planning and Communications. We would be pleased to answer any questions you have regarding the Supplementary Estimates B and the Departmental Results Report for Public Services and Procurement Canada. Mr. Chair, Canada is facing a broad range of new and evolving challenges, and the federal government is clearly focused on spending less on its operations while investing more to strengthen the country. With its far-reaching mandate that supports so much of the government's work, PSPC plays an essential role in these efforts. There are several priorities the government is also targeting within the supplementary estimates now before Parliament, and I will briefly outline some of these requests as they pertain to PSPC. Le poste le plus important contenu dans les...
The largest item contained in the estimates for the department is an $11 million allocation for the Emerging Needs Funds managed by PSPC to support advertising program across government departments and agencies. The ongoing economic uncertainty means the Government of Canada will likely need to be more flexible and responsive in its advertising efforts. This funding will enable the government to communicate with Canadians on the wide range of social, economic, and geopolitical issues that affect their daily lives. The estimates also request a partial reprofile of a frozen allotment established under Vote 1 in the amount of $2 million to cover the costs of a complaint filed with the Canadian International Trade Tribunal in May of 2023. Finally, Mr. Chair, among other requests, contained within the estimates is a proposed transfer of $3 million from PSPC to the Department of Indigenous Services for the National Indigenous Procurement Initiative. This funding will benefit Indigenous communities and companies by providing access to good jobs and a broad range of procurement opportunities. This money will also help to support the government's goal of awarding at least 5% of the total value of federal contract to businesses managed and led by Indigenous people.
Departmental Results Report, Mr. Chair. In its latest report, PSPC had 42 departmental results indicators, of which 27 met their targets. PSPC met its targets in areas such as client satisfaction, delivery of real property projects, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, compliance of linguistic services, and the processing of security screening for contractors and subcontractors. Efforts are ongoing to improve results in other areas, including contracts awarded to small and medium businesses, women, and Indigenous suppliers, and the number of employees facing potential pay inaccuracies at the pay center. A number of factors are expected to strengthen the department's ability to meet its targets going forward. These include improvements to the way we collect and use data and the implementation of AI to support operational activities, including pay and procurement modernization initiatives. In closing, Mr. Chair, PSPC will strive to build on its record of strong service delivery and ensure value for money as we support the government in fulfilling its ambitious agenda. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Davis, the floor is yours.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity to discuss Shared Services Canada's request in the 2025-2026 Supplementary Administrative B. I'm accompanied today by Paul Labbé, the Assistant Deputy Minister of Shared Services Canada Strategic Engagement Branch. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. First, I'd like to situate our work. SSC is at the center of efforts of the Government of Canada's priority to transform government and modernize operations. Our mandate is clear: to deliver secure, reliable, efficient digital services that enable federal departments and agencies to deliver services to Canadians and businesses. SPC est essentiel au fonctionnement du gouvernement.
SSC is essential to the operations of government. We are present wherever the GC operates, spanning about 4,000 locations across Canada and around the world. SSC has a dedicated team that works around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. SSC is shifting government away from siloed, decentralized systems toward unified, enterprise-wide models that enable digital government. This approach strengthens both security and reliability, ensuring that sensitive information is safeguarded and remains under Canadian control. By consolidating key systems in SSC's enterprise data centers, we have achieved important cost savings, significantly improved the availability and stability of government services, and reinforced the protection of critical government data. SSC's approach has delivered savings. Our actual spending decreased by $174 million from 2023-2024 to 2024-2025. Some of these reductions are related to our core mission to consolidate and modernize IT services. It has driven these efficiencies. For example, by leveraging government purchasing power to buy and manage mobile devices in bulk, we saved $20 million. Additional savings came from reducing the use of professional services. Those costs are down by $81 million from 2022-2023 to 2024-2025.
A net increase of $48.5 million. These requests are relatively routine and include $45 million to provide core IT services, including software, hardware, and technology related to services for new employees. $8 million to support the continued transfer of cloud operations from Statistics Canada to SSC, plus $2 million for associated benefits. Transfers to other departments will also reduce SSC's appropriation by $7 million. Finally, the estimates make a technical adjustment to reflect increases needs of the Department of National Defence. This does not reflect SSC's direct funding as appropriations flow through D&D. While these estimates are standard, Budget 2025 reinforces SSC's role in digital transformation across the Government of Canada and in enabling the adoption and scaling of artificial intelligence across the public service. SSC is developing a sovereign made-in-Canada AI platform for government-wide deployment in partnership with leading Canadian AI companies, the Communications Security Establishment, and the Department of National Defence. We're leading a competitive procurement process for generative AI productivity tools for government employees, which include 3 Canadian pre-qualified vendors. We are applying AI and robotic process automation across SSC's internal operations to increase efficiency and service to departments and agencies. SSC will also advance work to consolidate the management of Government of Canada desktop computers, similar to our approach for smartphones, improving portability across departments by reducing costs and increasing security. SSC is also identifying new savings within its operations.
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, I have to ask you to wrap up, please.
my last couple of points. We will achieve that under the comprehensive expenditure review. SSC will realize ongoing savings of $318.5 million. We will achieve that by standardizing platforms, eliminating low-use or redundant licenses, consolidating contracts to limit duplication and secure better pricing, efficiencies in business processes, and continue to close legacy data centers. The bottom line is a more effective and efficient government improves program and service delivery to Canadians, and SSC is proud to be part of that. J'ai hâte de répondre à vos questions. Merci.
Thank you very much.
Let me go to respond to your question.
We could have just turned it over to shared services. We'll start with Mr. Seaback for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move a motion, put a motion on notice.
So are you reading it into the record?
Yes.
Or are you putting, okay,
yes.
sorry.
Yes, I'm going to read this motion into the record. I move that ISED be ordered to resend to the committee the redacted copy of CIF agreement number 813-816251 and amendment agreement number 1 and amendment agreement number 2 without any conditions or confidentiality requirements within 24 hours of receiving this request from the committee.
Point of order, Chair. We have an agenda, and we've been moving on to another matter. This is out of.
Yeah, he's just putting it on notice. He's not moving it, so he's allowed to continue, Mr. Seaback.
But even brought forward at this point, it's not part of the. It's not in line with the agenda that's been approved.
Members can put notices on motion, and he's just reading it into.
Why are you allowing him to read? I guess is my question.
Because I'm allowing it, because members can read. He's just putting on notice. He's not moving it, so we're not going to be debating. He's just putting it on notice.
It shouldn't even be allowed to be done at this point. We have.
I am allowing it. Continue, Mr. Seaback.
I've read the motion in. Thank you. And I will provide it in writing in both official languages, and I'm going to share the rest of my time with Kelly Block.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for joining us today, although I will voice my extreme disappointment over the fact that Minister Lightbound is not appearing before this committee to defend the supplementary estimates, nor is the Deputy Minister. And it's standard practice for a minister and a deputy minister to appear before parliamentarians to defend their estimates. And so I'm both frustrated and disappointed, to say the least. Given the most recent quarterly report from Canada Post, we find that they will run out of funds by December 31st of 2025. That's at the end of this year. And I quote, "The corporation will need to access short-term financing." Is there a current request from Canada Post to access more funding from the government?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I'm actually going to turn to my colleague Lorenzo, who is the lead on the Canada Post file for PSPC.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So as the question noted, Canada Post has obviously posted a third quarter loss that was fairly substantive at and that followed the second quarter loss that also occurred. The Government of Canada had made a $1 billion support or repayable loan that was made available to Canada Post for this year. Given their current projections, they will likely need to have some additional support on an ongoing basis. There are conversations going on right now between Canada Post and our department, as well as others, in terms of what how the corporation can continue to operate in the current environment. What I would note is the good news that on November 21st, both the Union for CUBW noted that Canada Post and them have reached an agreement in principle, which should help and hopefully resolve the labor dispute that has been that Canada Post and its union have been in for the last 2 years.
Thank you very much. You noted that Canada Post and your department are currently in conversations about their financial situation. Does this mean that the government plans to approve another loan or more funding to Canada Post?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So those conversations are ongoing, and obviously those items are being discussed and considered. It'd be probably premature for me to be able to respond to that question directly.
Given that they have indicated that the corporation will need to access short-term financing by the end of this year, there is nothing in Supplementary B estimates potentially for them. Is that because you are still having those conversations with Canada Post, and by what vehicle would you be providing additional funding to Canada Post?
So two-part response, if you'll permit. So first is Canada Post, of course, generates revenues through their ongoing activities. They also have other mechanisms that are available to them as a Crown Corporation to be able to seek access to funding in order to be able to maintain their operations. And of course, as the Canada Post Corporation Act identifies, the corporation is able to access funds from the government in situations where they need to. There is no funding for Canada Post in Supplementary Estimates B, as you had identified. In theory, in terms of how Canada Post would be able to access funding, so the two vehicles that are available to, beyond those that I've just mentioned before, the two vehicles that are available to the Crown Corporation would be through either a main estimates or through supplementary estimates. Supplementary Estimates B obviously has passed, but it could be either through a supplementary estimates or through the main estimates for which they would be able to access additional funding should that decision be rendered.
Thank you.
Are you done? I'm sorry, I thought you said thank you to the 40 seconds. Okay.
Seconds.
We'll go to Ms. Khalid, please, for 6 minutes. And then Madame Goudreau for 6.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for appearing today. I'll start with PSPC, if that's okay. So according to Departmental Results Report for 24 to 25, PSPC successfully reduced the cost of procurement services to 93 cents per $100 of the contract value, which is significantly ahead of your 1.75 target. So what operational efficiencies or innovations helped you to get to that reduction? And is there lessons for other departments also to take from there?
Thanks very much for the question, Mr. Chair. And maybe I'll turn over to Dominic Laporte. He's ADM of Procurement, could speak to some of the efficiencies that are happening within Procurement Branch.
Yeah, no, thank you. We are very pleased with these results, and I would say that the key for that is we're seeing the progress made with the electronic procurement solution. So most of our contract now, 99% are leveraging that solution. So it means that bidders are able, for example, to file their bids directly into EPS. There's much more involvement from our procurement officer. So just in terms of also data analysis, there's much more that we can do. So it's really reaping the benefits of the last few years of the investment that have been made in electronic procurement solution. And at the same time, also leveraging our procurement vehicle that we use. I think the more we have clients leveraging, for example, vehicle like standing offers, supply arrangement, we're able to achieve those savings.
Thank you for that. I find that to be very enlightening. I appreciate that. Going on that same report, which shows that 94% of procurement requests were fulfilled within service level standards, which is well above the 80% target. So can you talk to us a little bit about what factors enabled PSP to achieve these high level of timeliness, and how is the department continuing to improve procurement efficiency?
That's a good question. Thank you for that. So what we're doing, again, to the danger of repeating myself, EPS has been one of the driver. I would say also all working with our client to make sure that we put in place a procurement solution that will mean that, for example, are going to be used for many kind of different requirements. That goes a long way. So we're able basically to fast track procurement. I have to say also that we do invest every day in the training of our procurement officers. So I'm very pleased of our 1,300 procurement officers working with PSPC. So learning is happening. Efficiencies are being derived as we invest in technology.
Thank you. So how does that play into our Buy Canada, Support Canada policy, and knowing that a lot of Canadian businesses are SMEs? how does PSPC planning to work to ensure that that our policies are met?
Well, of course, we want to become our best customer. Every dollar that is invested in procurement, we want to make sure that it does have economic impact for Canadian supplier. So as you know, the Buy Canadian policy was announced by the Prime Minister on September 5th. Our department is working on that as we speak. What we want is also we want to prioritize the use of Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, Canadian woods. We want also to prioritize Canadian suppliers when we have bids. How can we make sure that taxpayer money goes to Canadian suppliers? Same thing when it comes to Canadian content, making sure that we're going to be driving Canadian content, and by doing that, we're also going to be driving the supply chain of Canadian industry. So that's going to be key to adapt, and this is where we can really use procurement as a key lever for economic development and to face also the current situation.
So what are some of the concrete steps to take to make sure that Canadian companies are prioritized in terms of the current framework of PSPC and procurement?
Well, what has been announced so far is basically in terms of making sure, for example, that when we have construction project in future, infrastructure or defense procurement, that the steel that will be required for these projects is going to be melt and pour in Canada. So that's going to be one example that I can give here publicly. So all those elements are key. Same thing also with wood. For the new Build Canada strategy, making sure also that the wood that we're going to be purchasing is going to be made in Canada. So that's only one example, but there's also making sure that contracts are going to Canadian supplier. So a lot of work is happening on that front. And also something that is important to keep in mind is that oftentimes Canadian supplier, it's a seal of approval for them also to penetrate other markets. So if they receive federal government contract, they're able to rely on that and use that as a marketing tool for other export market, which is a huge plus. And I'm hopeful that in future we're going to be able to leverage vendor performance management to also reward our good suppliers, those that deliver on time and on budget.
Do you think that your whole online procurement system has made it easier for less complex organizations to now also be part of the procurement process? Or is it going to be hindering further efficiencies if we try to support SMEs?
I think we're always investing. We're always looking into AI. And to be very, very frank, we need also to invest more in our EPS procurement solution. So we want also to make procurement more accessible. Again, one of the announcements and the budget was the harmonized procurement regulation. Right now, we have 11 trade agreements that are each incorporated into domestic law. So it's very difficult. You don't have one set of regulation. What we want to do is streamline, simplify the obligation on procurement so that suppliers who are bidding our contract can better appreciate their obligation. Also, we've been developing standard contract clause to simplify also contractual obligation, and those things are incorporated also into our electronic procurement solution.
One last question? Sorry, thank you. Thanks very much.
Madame Gaudreau, please.
Merci beaucoup. Merci d'être.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. Christmas is just around the corner. I'm the one who tabled the motion for Canada Post, and I want to ask the question. We had an agreement on November 21st. The people concerned, did they see the plan? Thank you for the question, Chair. Indeed, what the union indicated on November 21 is that the union and the management of Canada Post have an agreement in principle. The website of the union indicates that at this stage, the union and Canada Post management have to come to agreement on the terms and conditions as to how to implement the new collective agreement, and that this will then proceed with a vote with the union membership in order to get the approval. So they've seen the reform, the members of the union. So Mr. Ettinger had 45 days for reform. I'm sorry, Chair. I misunderstood your question. Excuse me, it's my fault. No, it's because often I I can tell you, I have two committees, and as a whole, I can speak English, but I prefer to speak French. Thank you very much for your understanding. At the end of a session, we all get tired. So let's start over. The reform 45-21 agreement in principle. Have the people seen the agreement? If so, yes or no? Yes. They've seen the reform plan. No, it's two different things. So the 45-day reform plan was provided by Canada Post Management to Minister Lightbound, and that plan is currently being studied by us and by the minister on his desk. When will it be ready? Because I learned about this in the media on November 10th. And this is highly important for us to receive that here so that we can, well, analyze it at the same time you do. We have 17 million addresses, including 4 million that are worried about what's happening. Christmas is around the corner, and it seems like since November 21st, we've had an agreement in principle, and they don't want to deliver presents. What will we do? Well, I just want to clarify things. The agreement in principle, that's the agreement regarding the negotiations between the union and the reform. No, excuse me. Well, that's the reform. So it's the agreement on the collective agreement to solve the union issues. On the other hand, the transformation plan is a proposal that Canada Post gave the minister based on recommendations the minister gave to Canada Post that they should move forward to have a plan to implement the recommendations of Commissioner Kaplan, who issued a report in May. So, of course, it is an approach or a plan that was suggested by Canada Post that has to be considered by the minister, because, of course, it's their approach toward change, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all the points will necessarily be adopted. But it's urgent to act because we have to question about the actual nature of Canada Post. There have been witnesses that appeared, and we've had all those concerns expressed, and every day we're losing money, so we have to question that. On November 10th, the report was filed, and I learned this in the media, and then we're going to receive, Chair, I hope on December 11th we'll receive that, but now the holiday season is coming and we haven't heard any news. How come? Well, as you mentioned, on December 11th, the CEO of Canada Post will be with you and will probably be able to give you his outlook on that. And once again, the plan that was submitted identifies the approach that Canada Post wants to implement to be able to implement the recommendations of Commissioner Kaplan. Okay, another question. Building Homes Canada, I asked a question in the House this week. What about the supply? We want it to come from our Canadian suppliers. But, you know, at home, Laurentides-Labelle, there's a plant that just closed that produces lumber. And we hear more and more of that from week to week. Where am I going to get my supply to build Homes Canada? Explain that to me. If I may answer the question, the goal of the policy of buying from Canada is not just for public tenders, but also for subsidies by the government. So the same principles will be established by each department to enhance Canadian steel, lumber, and aluminum. But there won't be any more lumber. The plants have to close because they're not being supported. We asked for 50% in countervailing rights and wage supports, and we haven't heard a word. And now we have Stellantis with billions. So somewhere along the line, people will laugh at us. So there's subsidies have been given. I don't know, but if the government of Canada, through its purchases, supports the demand for Canadian labor, it will make a big difference, per se. Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Jansen, please, for 5.
Okay, thank you very much. I wonder, I might possibly be talking to Mr. Laporte, I believe. I have a question on your fraud findings. So the reports says something about procurement could have encountered fraud, collusion, and wrongdoings in 2024-25. So it's a bit of a weird wording. So my question is, did procurement uncover any fraud or collusion last year? Yes or no?
ADM procurement. One of my colleagues, Catherine Poulin, is responsible for those investigations. So I've got limited knowledge, but we did, of course, uncover some instances of fraud. She was at this committee talking about overbilling and the fact that we've been able to recover so far more than $5 million in terms of overbilling.
Okay, so then how many cases were found?
This is the information that unfortunately I'm not privy to these investigations in terms of numbers of cases. So I'm not able, unfortunately.
Anybody else?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm afraid we probably don't have the best information here. Catherine Poulin, who's the ADM responsible for our oversight branch, would be able to provide those details. But happy to respond if that's of interest.
You mentioned $5 million has been recovered, but we don't know how much was taken.
Subcontractor, basically that we're overbilling some department. A lot of action has been taken on that front, but I'm not able to basically elaborate on that. Not that I don't want to, I'm not privy to the details of those investigations, but we're more than happy to provide that information to follow up.
Please do, yeah. So on the fraud tip line, it mentions in the report there's a 250% increase in tips in the tip line, but I don't find percentages very helpful. So I'm just wondering, what's the actual number of tips you've received?
Again, I'm not the one receiving those tips. We would be happy to.
Mr. Urechi might be able to.
Thank you. I was just waiting for my mic to come on. So, Mr. Chair, we'll come back to you in terms of the actual numbers instead of percentages. If you'll permit me to just go back to the previous question.
Rapport au règlement, Monsieur le Président. Vous faites un excellent travail, les chers interprètes, mais...
Point of order, you're doing a great job, interpreters, but when you go really fast, it's hard to interpret simultaneously. So could you please slow things down a bit? Take a breath. We're reaching the end of the day. The chair is very generous. Take your time, please.
Pass for me. No, Madame Gaudreau has a good point as usual. Thank you. We will proceed a bit slower.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies to the interpreters. Just to go back to the previous question, if I may, the $5 million amount, I just want to correct. So PSPC, through 3 cases that had been identified, had identified overbillings totaling $4.5 million, of which $4 or $4.1 million has been recovered, and work is ongoing to be able to recover the rest. I believe that there was 7 cases in total that had been referred to the RCMP. I believe that's right. But what the report identifies is one of the things that Ms. Poulin, or one of our colleagues, has spoken about is the fact that PSPC has been augmenting its ability to be able to do data analytics and to be able to access more information, so that we are able as a department to be able to detect more accurately and more quickly instances of fraud and refer those to the RCMP. I hope that helps.
I do have questions on that. Obviously, it lists your new tools in the report: analytics, anti-fraud hub, overbilling, checks, and so forth. But how many suspicious invoices did your fraud analytics flag last year?
Unfortunately, Mr. Chair, I don't have the answer to that question right in front of me. We'll have to come back to you.
Okay. I'd like to know how much money in dollars was stopped or recovered because of these tools.
So that one, like I said, would be it's either $4 or $4.1 million has been recovered from the 4.5 that was identified as overbilling.
Okay. So it's just it's a bit odd that the report isn't a bit more clear on that. Like you say, could have happened, but then there's really no numbers in there. So I mean, for myself, I think it would be so much easier if there was a bit more information in a department report like that. So I understand you guys are going to commit to include real fraud metrics that you're going to hand to us, and will you commit to putting them in departmental result reports later, going forward?
Two-part questions, Mr. Chair. So part one is, yes, we will absolutely provide you a response in writing to the clerk to the 2 questions for which we're unable to answer. And yes, absolutely, we will take it under advisement in terms of how much detail we can provide. One of the challenges that we face with reports such as departmental results reports is, of course, they are a period of time. They are the previous fiscal year, and by the time they are issued, oftentimes those numbers have actually changed and updated. So it's a challenge that we always face with these types of reports, but absolutely we'll.
Looking for numbers of cases found, dollars at risk, and actions taken to protect taxpayers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Noted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Mr. Gasparo, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for being here. So PSP identified procurement modernization as a top priority for 2024 and 2025. Could you walk the committee through the most significant improvements made this year to streamline procurement and better serve the department or departments, excuse me?
Thank you for the question. So we made several improvements. So we spoke about the electronic procurement solution. Our continuous investment in that solution is something that is paying off a lot. We're also taking measure a lot. We heard a lot about professional services. So what we want to do is work with our clients to move them from time-based contract to basically solution-based contract. So this is one of the key improvements. We want to make sure that we're putting a cap also, really working with our clients to find the most optimal solution to basically meet their procurement obligation, their procurement needs. So that's an example. Very pleased also to report, and I would say this is in itself, it's a huge modernization initiative, the launch of the vendor performance management framework. So what we want to do is keep a scorecard for each of our suppliers in future. So they're all going to have a rating, whether or not they deliver on time, on budget, and we're going to be leveraging that scorecard for future tender opportunity. So the good suppliers, those who always kind of provide great quality, great services to the Crown, will be rewarded to that. And we're also going to be able to take action against those maybe suppliers who provide deficient or poor services. So that's, for example, something that we've put in motion on top of so many other initiatives that we're working on to modernize procurement.
Okay, great. So I just want to move on to Indigenous services. So the plan to transfer $3 million to Indigenous Services Canada to support their procurement initiatives. Can you just outline the intended results, any early success you're seeing, et cetera, any issues?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So the transfer to Indigenous Services Canada is to be able to permit Public Services and Procurement Canada to use the grants and contributions that are available through Indigenous Services Canada in order to be able to help Indigenous organizations participate and take advantage of federal procurement. So what we have through this program, I'll give maybe a couple of examples that might be helpful. So first is we provided funding to be able to help the Ontario First Nations Economic Developers Association, who added 280 businesses to their directory for Indigenous businesses and supported more than 100 First Nations economic development officers in their work. And what they do is they work with Indigenous companies in order to be able to participate in federal procurement. We had a similar, another example with the Council for the Advancement of Native Development Officers, or CANDO, where again we work with them and we provide them with assistance so that they can do things like a procurement mentorship program, launching a national web series, creating a virtual resource hub, which again allows them to be able to inform businesses within their communities and within their nations of federal opportunities, and they work closely with our colleagues in Procurement Assistance Canada. So these are just a couple of examples of the way that we use this, we leverage this to be able to transfer funds to Indigenous Services Canada, who in turn are able to provide funding to Indigenous organizations, community groups, in order to be able to help Indigenous businesses participate in federal procurement. So that helps.
And can you connect or explain how this initiative connects with the strategic partnership initiative and how both work together to expand Indigenous not only economic participation, which also, I guess, is also relates very heavily to economic reconciliation?
Pardon me?
25 seconds.
In 25 seconds. I'm not as familiar with the Strategic Partnership Initiative. What I would say is the funding that we get through supplementary estimates being we transfer is PSPC's approach to be able to help Indigenous communities, groups, organizations, and businesses to participate in federal procurement, and our federal programs should be complementary to each other.
Thank you.
23 seconds, well done. Wow. Yeah.
So I still have 2 seconds, is what you're saying.
For 2.5.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. I want to talk about digital matters because there's something, digital transformation. I don't understand. Why do we give so many contracts and billions of dollars of recurring contract to the GAFAM? For those listening to us, it's Google, Apple, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. There are tools that we use. And here we're talking about a digital transformation and an increase in the contracts. And when we're making our own things more fragile, we're financing those who are killing us now. That's powerful, but I gave you the example of the tax on the services, the digital services, which was cut, and now we're going to give them money. I don't understand anymore. There are existing models. There are models in Europe. There are models in other G7 countries. You're not going to get me to believe that that is in France or the UK and in Germany, and there are models which avoid that, and at the same time they put their pants on because they applied the tax. Tell me something about that.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. Something to be noted. I'll give you some of our numbers. We're in partnership with PSPC. They make a lot of purchases on IT. We do a lot of purchasing there as well. Last year, we did about 3.1 billion of purchasing. In those numbers, we have 65.9% of those contracts with a value of 1.12 billion to small and medium Canadian companies. More than 32.5% of the value of the 554 million was for Canadian SMEs that have, I don't have much time, Chair. I forgot to press on my timer. What do you want? Anyway, I'd like to get a breakdown. It will reassure me, perhaps. I hope so. That being said, it's not just money we're talking about. We're talking about jobs. Even TVA is about to die off. So, you know, the taxes and the royalties, it has an impact. And it looks like we're headed straight ahead to the GAFAMs that are already multimillionaires and they don't even endorse what we do. So in short, I'm really quite discouraged, and you're caught up with that. And it's a counter to the values, but what do I have, 20 seconds left? Just briefly, one of the items we focus on a lot to help those companies in the purchasing. We're quite a large purchaser in that area. So find solutions to enhance more like that.
Ms. Rochford.
Thank you, Chair. The question I have is regarding the planned spending, which was exceeded by almost $2/3 of $1 billion. Respectfully, $667 million in a single year that you overspent is not a rounding error. What specific controls failed, and what are you going to do about it?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this question directed for PSPC?
Yes,
or
sir.
to shared service? Okay.
Thank you.
So our planned spending is based on our main estimates. And as you know, we have supplementary estimates, which we're talking about today, and those actually increase budget throughout the year. So when you see an overspend against our planned spending, it is in general related to an item that was approved in year. Last year, we did have additional funding that was approved for our pay system, so that actually increased the budget available to PSPC in year. So that would explain why we were over our planned spending.
You missed about 1/3 of the planned targets, which signals a deeper operational issue to me. When departments miss that many performance targets, That's a structural problem, not an isolated event. So what changed mid-year that made those targets unattainable?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I mean, I think I would say we achieved 27 out of our 42 targets. We exceeded. We are taking steps in the areas where we have challenges in order to improve them, and I know that there are actions in place to make improvements. I will open it up to my colleague Lorenzo, who may have some more specific details to talk on those targets where we did not.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to note that the report does include a number of footnotes at the bottom of each one of the pages that also provides a little bit more information in terms of some of the explanations. Some of the indicators will need to be updated based on recent changes, and in other instances, the department continues through programs to be able to try to make sure that we reach those targets, as obviously they are in some cases aspirational.
Not the answer I was looking for, but nevertheless, both PSPC and SSC let more than $100 million lapse last year. Which projects were delayed? Which branches were responsible? And who is being held accountable?
I can start. So we can provide that in writing to the committee. There's a series of detailed projects. On any given day, we're doing 40 to 50 multi-million-dollar projects. So it's a series of, it's a mix. But absolutely, I can provide.
Sure. How much time do I have, Chair?
Just under 3 minutes.
You're asking for $11 million, PSPC is, for government advertising, almost half of the total being shared across the government. What justifies your department getting the lion's share? And that's almost combined for other 5 departments. You need more than that? Why?
Oh, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. This is funding that's related to the Emerging Needs Fund that PCO has approved and has asked PSPC to deliver. It provides flexibility for the government to be able to respond to emerging issues that arise during the year and are not part of the original advertising plan. So it's really a fund that's available for immediate advertising in order to reach Canadians. But I'll also turn to Natalie Bertrand if she wishes to add anything more on that particular topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So again, as my colleague pointed out, this is a subset of the central fund that is held and managed by PCO. So we only receive part of the advertising fund. And again, it is to respond to urgent or unforeseen needs. So anything that would happen outside of the annual planning cycle that is managed by PCO. So one of the examples this year, the government ran a campaign on EI, temporary EI benefits out of ESDC to assist workers that were impacted by the tariffs.
You now spend more on contractors than your own employees. How much of that is because government plans to reduce public servants, and how much is because your department relies too heavily on contractors? And specifically, what skills, functions have you decided you will not rebuild in-house, and what is the long-term cost of that choice?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. We do spend a great deal on contracting within PSPC in particular, and that's primarily because we're in the process of implementing a number of major capital projects. We are involved in the renovations around Parliament, which again, it's contracted out to specific construction companies who are specialists in doing this sort of work. Public servants, we don't employ public servants who are tradesmen on a regular basis. So again, we're supplementing our requirements for these specific projects, which is explaining why our professional services costs are quite high.
Ms. Rushworth, please.
Oui, Mr. Chair, I'll share my time with my colleague, Mrs. Sutz. And so just a quick question. I'm just interested from a rural perspective on shared services. And so basically, we know that there's issues with service across our country. So can you explain how your investments in cloud migration, network upgrades will help make federal digital services more reliable for Canadians living outside urban areas? And maybe just a comment as well on any cybersecurity issues from a rural perspective.
Thank you for the question. Maybe I'll start with the latter and go backwards. Cybersecurity issues are a reality across the country, regardless of where you are. SSC, in collaboration with the other cyber tripartite, Block 3 3.5 trillion cyber attacks per year. So it's an impressive number, a scary number from a bad actor perspective. When we look into rural, SSE has been working with low orbit satellites and some of the satellite capabilities in the north. We've deployed, I have the number here somewhere, well over 300, between 300 and 500 low orbit satellites enabling the north and continuing to enable the north to be able to function. So we continue to invest in hubs. So we have a hub in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver, which actually sits as a central point to actually deploy across the country the capabilities that Canadians need to be serviced with.
That's very, very impressive. Thank you for that answer. Thank you.
My turn. Thank you. I don't actually have any further questions, but I do have a motion that I'd like to table. Just given the discussion today, and I think the interest in having the ISED officials back, I propose that in regards to the communications on redactions made to the contract ordered by the committee on October 20th, 2025 for 1 hour, the committee re-invite officials from the Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development to appear before the committee on Tuesday, December 9th.
Are you putting that on notice?
I'd like to table it, given, I think, the interest in getting them here sooner than later and getting to the bottom of this.
It's because it's not a matter of hand. You would have to only put it on notice, but I think we generally have agreement with the committee that we'll proceed that manner. We're in agreement.
Wonderful.
Une chance que je comprends un peu l'anglais parce que je pense qu'en français.
It's a good thing I understand a bit of English, because in French it seems to me there were a few words missing that prior to appearing before the committee on Tuesday the 9th. I just wanted to make sure I heard it.
Thank you. En français? Oui, ou en anglais?
In French or in English?
That in regards to communications on redactions made to the contract ordered by the committee on October 20th, 2025, the committee re-invite officials from the Department of Innovation, Science and Economic Development to appear before the committee on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025 for 1 hour.
This solves the issue I brought up earlier about having their feedback before we look at a privilege issue. So thank you for bringing that forward. If we have unanimous consent, we will adopt that. Wonderful. You've got about 1 minute left, Ms. Sutz.
Good, thank you.
Well, PSPC, Shared Services, thanks for being with us again. I will dismiss you. Colleagues, just very... Madame Gaudreault, just very quickly, we heard back from Mr. Guzman and the Secretary of State. Mr. Guzman is better, but they're offering at the end of January, but I don't know what our schedule will be when we come back, whether we're still on a Tuesday, Thursday. So if it's fine with everyone here, we'll wait till we get the notice of what our schedule will be, then I'll leave it to the clerk to book. Secondly, Thursday, everyone will like this. We're going to shave off, if everyone's fine, a half hour. There's some issues that popped up, and it looks like we're going to have Canada Post for 90 minutes and not the full 2 hours. So I hope everyone is happy with... I suspected as much. I didn't wish to make assumptions, but I just advising everyone. And then I will ask colleagues, we'd spoken perhaps about having Transport Safety Board and PSPIB, who's under the OGO umbrella, for next week for the second half. I'll leave it to the parties chat offline and advise what they would like to see for the second hour, if anything, for next Tuesday. Thank you very much. Good to see you again, Mr. Achi. Appreciate everything. And colleagues, have a great weekend. We are adjourned.